Hey Merfolk fans, I'm Joe. Thanks very much for joining me today. If you'd like to support my channel, please check the link above to my Patreon page. I'm here with round 5 of a Modern Friendly League, currently sitting at 4-0. Didn't drop a single game through the first 3 rounds. Finally lost a game in the last round to Grixis Control, but ultimately managed to pull out the win. So yeah, we have a chance to go 5-0 here. Let's take a look at the opening hands. I won the die roll, which is a great start. And this looks like a solid hand. Obviously, we're going to want to draw lands, but we have an island already. If this was in Mutavault, I probably would mulligan, but it's an island, so I feel pretty comfortable. The opponent mulliganed and put a card on the bottom. So again, an auspicious start for us. Okay, so Inquisition is rough. We'd love to keep this Spreading Seas because it's going to let us hopefully draw into more land, but and also we can cast it even if we draw like a Mutavault next turn. Opponent took the Spreading Seas. We're going to take the AEther Vial up. Ugh, we whiffed on lands. Usually it's okay if we sort of miss once, maybe even twice. Okay, opponent going to 18, playing a Grim Flayer. So we're looking at either black-green or Abzan. Probably Abzan. I think Grim Flayer, you know, they typically want to play like Lingering Souls in the deck. Well, Spell Pierce we can at least cast if he tries to go for like turn 3 Liliana or something. But things are rapidly worsening for us. So the opponent casts Inquisition again. So at this point, I had to think, do we want to Spell Pierce this? My thought is probably not. You know, he could draw into like a Liliana later, in which case Spell Pierce would be pretty decent. I'm going to actually respond to Inquisition by putting Master of the Pearl Trident onto the battlefield. If the opponent takes one of the other Lords of Atlantis, then makes us just less vulnerable to Maelstrom Pulse. If the opponent takes this Master of the Pearl Trident, then all of my creatures are doubles, and I become pretty vulnerable to getting blown up by Maelstrom Pulse. So let's go ahead and respond by putting in Master of the Pearl Trident. And then we'll let the Inquisition resolve. If the opponent wants a Spell Pierce, he can take it, but he did choose to take one of the Island Walk Lords. It's going to get in with Grim Flayer here, and I'm going to try to block. Opponent doesn't like that, so he's going to respond by Abrupt Decaying the Lord. It seems interesting to me. It seems like it might be better with me on just an AEther Vial to Abrupt Decay the AEther Vial, but anyhow, opponent goes for the Master, and since Grim Flayer has Trample, he is going to get to deal damage, and he will get to do what Grim Flayer does. You have to look at the top 3 cards, potentially put some into the graveyard. You see Shambling Vents and a Plains. Like something, so he keeps it on the top. Really want to draw lands here. I'm going to take AEther up to 3 because if we draw a land, we can go Reejerey, Lord, untap the Vial, and Reejerey again. But we continue to whiff. I'll just pass to the opponent. Hope that he has something like a Liliana that we can Spell Pierce. Absolutely not blocking this Grim Flayer. So he gets to do his thing again. He's really close to Delirium. So land and Thoughtseize and a Forest. No, and Lingering Souls, I think, was what we saw. Opponent goes for Tireless Tracker. So our cards are not really lining up very well here. Spell Pierce can't hit the Tireless Tracker, and we're still not hitting lands. So turn 5, and we haven't drawn 1 land. So if we play AEther Vial, we can't play Spell Pierce, but at the same time, we're not winning this game if we don't get something going. So we'll just pass back to the opponent. Somehow our life total is still higher than theirs. Getting in with both of these guys, and I'm really not interested in getting blown out by blocking the Grim Flayer, bringing in another Reejerey, having that one get removed. But, you know, I think I might have to do it. Maybe we can wait a turn. No blocks. Grim Flayer gets to activate again. Or trigger, I guess, again. Okay, I think the opponent liked what was on the top for the most part. Tarmogoyf is kind of rough. We can draw into some Harbingers and maybe a land. There's a Reejerey. We get 2 triggers off of this guy if we draw a land. We'll leave that one on 3 because we've still got Reejereys, and Kira would be excellent right now, though a little bit of a downward spiral. That second Spell Pierce is just kind of insulting at this point. Okay, plays a land, gets a clue, goes to combat. So I think we have to try to block the Grim Player here. Because the guy has trample, I think the opponent, okay, he just removed the blocker. And at this point, he gets a land. It's gonna put another clue, and that's gonna make the Tireless Tracker. Let's see. Well, cracking the clue will make him bigger. So I think at this point, it's exactly lethal with 11. And yeah, we kept a 1-lander with an island, and we got, I think, well, that was our turn 5, which means that we, on the play, no, that was our turn 6, being on the play. So we drew 5 cards, and none of them were lands. I think the odds of that happening are really low. I think the keep was correct, but unfortunately, it's a really terrible way to start off Game 5 when we're trying to go 5-0. Look away for a second if you don't want to see the match result. All right, back for Game 2. I will be on the play again. Let's check out what I brought in from the sideboard and took out. As you can see, I took out my 4 Cursecatchers and the 4 AEther Vials. I run 20 lands, and the fact that I got stuck on 1 last time, you know, it's totally just variance, which, you know, strikes sometimes. We can do very well against these kinds of mid-range decks without our AEther Vials, and we just don't want to get stuck keeping a hand like the one I kept last time with an AEther Vial. And also, as the games move deeper and deeper into the turns, we don't want to be top decking AEther Vials. So take out the 4 AEther Vials, take out the low impact 4 Cursecatchers, and it looks like I brought in 2 Echoing Truths, 2 Dismembers, 3 Relic of Progenitus, and 1 Negate. So the idea with the Negate was for things like Damnation and either of the 2 Lilianas. It's not a body, but at the same time, I think having a singleton Negate on top of the 2 Spell Pierces outweighs like one of these extra Cursecatchers here. So choice between the 3rd Cursecatcher and a Negate. I went with Negate as a solid answer to their Planeswalkers and board wipes. So as I mentioned, I'm going to be on the play. This is a stellar opening hand. We do have that Negate, and hopefully we'll get to resolve this Spreading Seas. Verdant Catacombs, and oh, well, unfortunately, since he didn't crack the Verdant Catacombs, we can't cast the Spreading Seas. So I think I'm just going to run out the Lord of Atlantis here. If he eats removal, you know, sort of so be it. We've got more threats, and opponent has to bolt himself to go get that mana. Okay, we're going to see a Thoughtseize here. There's no way to sort of stop that, so he's down to 15. Took Kira, left the Spreading Seas. So at this point, I'm going to play the Cavern, name Merfolk, and I think I'm going to run out the Spreading Seas. I don't think the opponent mulliganed here, but I like taking him off of green and black mana. It's possible he doesn't have a 3rd land drop. It's possible he doesn't have the mana necessary to cast like a turn 3 Liliana, but casting the Spreading Seas sort of helps us ensure that. Now, another very good option this turn would have been to play out the Silvergill Adept, which also would have drawn us a card. But I feel like if the opponent kept his opening 7, he almost certainly has some removal. Life total's already down to 14. We see a Blooming Marsh, and having gotten Temple Garden, we're not afraid of a Liliana this turn, but there is a Scavenging Ooze. We do have 2 creatures in the graveyard. Opponent's got green mana up. Another Spreading Seas. I'm just going to jam that, hopefully draw a land. I'm going to continue taking him off of black. So the land, we hit it, and I think it's then time to run out Silvergill Adept. Opponent knows about these two cards, I'm pretty sure, so I think I just reveal the Reejerey? Yeah. Echoing Truth is cool because if the Scooz gets big, we can bounce it. If Liliana starts ticking up, we can bounce her. If they try to wipe our board, we can potentially save one or more of our creatures. Or eventually we could bounce the Spreading Seas and get more card draw. So it's kind of a combo with some of our cards. Path to Exile on the Silvergill. Very strange decision. The opponent is already fearing for his life total. I get to thin my deck a little bit, get another island. Opponent plays a Marsh Flats. They're going to want to get their black mana back online at some point. Okay, using their green mana to eat Kira, which is fine by me. I'm going to take 3. We're still ahead on life total. And the opponent decides, we got him scared of these Spreading Seas, decide not to crack their fetch land right now. We drew another land for the turn, which is not great, but I can play a Reejerey and a Lord and untap a land to leave up Negate. The opponent's down to 3 cards in hand. They didn't respond to the Reejerey trigger. They know I have the Negate in hand. Now, the Scavenging Ooze can get a little bit bigger. We've got this Echoing Truth, which they do not know about, which we can use any which way we decide. Okay, they get a Godless Shrine. Interesting. So they look like they're prioritizing access to multiple white, which might mean Lingering Souls or more Path to Exiles. But they play another land, I guess, which will give them more access to green mana, taking life for it. And we're going to see something. Okay, Liliana the Last Hope is a beautiful target for Negate. Sort of validating my decision to bring in the Singleton Negate. Opponent following up with something. A Path on my Island Walk Lord. Well, that's okay. We get to thin the deck a little bit further. We've got more lands than we know what to do with. And since they used their mana... Oof, look like I clicked through that a little fast. Sorry, guys. Wait, so I went to my turn, and I drew a Dismember. So I'm going to use that immediately to get rid of the Scavenging Ooze. Since they're totally tapped out on green mana, we can get rid of that guy. Get in with Reejerey. And then note that because of the Path to Exiles, I have 6 islands right now. I can bounce these Spreading Seas back to my hand and recast the 2 Spreading Seas on the white mana to take him off of white and draw 2 more cards. It seems like a really, really powerful sequence, so I decided to go with that. I was a little bit hesitant because he could have potentially had like a Fatal Push in hand that I would have opened up with pulling the Spreading Seas off of his Overgrown Tomb, but he's only on 1 card, and we shouldn't play around anything if they're just on 1 card, really. Temple Garden. Draw a card off the Spreading Seas. That's perfect. Spreading Seas on Godless Shrine. Mutavault, another creature. We can play it because we haven't played a land yet, and things are really turning strongly in our favor. The opponent does have more white mana, but it enters the battlefield tapped. He's going to follow up with the Tarmogoyf. He's going to be pretty big at this point. But we can tap him with our Master, the Pearl Trident, or just bounce him with that Echoing Truth that we drew. We could also bounce our Spreading Seas again and continue that card draw engine. I'm going to start off by casting Reejerey and then untapping a land. We've got access to Spreading Seas, so I don't need to tap this Tarmogoyf. Odds are I won't need the land either. I'm going to activate Mutavault and swing for 7 here, putting the opponent all the way down to 2. We've got Echoing Truth to protect us against pretty much anything he can throw our way. If he tries to kill the Island Walk Lord or something, we can just bounce him back to our hand, although we have lethal with the other creatures anyway. Goes down to 2. I'm going to choose to hold off on bouncing the Spreading Seas for the time being. We'd only be able to replay 1 of them this turn. I could always do it on the opponent's end step if it looks like that's going to be a good play. But the opponent scooped on that turn. Felt like a really dominant game. We had the Negate for the Liliana of the Last Hope. You know, I'm actually starting to think that this card, at least against our deck, is better than Liliana of the Veil. The -2/-1 can just kill the Master of Waves. And if they get to the emblem, it's super hard to beat. We have 2 Echoing Truths, which helps a lot against a zombie army, but it can just win a game in like 2 turns or something. So the emblem is arguably more powerful than Liliana of the Veil's emblem. All right, so I managed to equalize this 5th round, currently 1-1. Look away for a second if you don't want to see the match result. Back for game 3. The opponent is going to be on the play. Remember, I've brought in 2 Echoing Truths, 2 Dismembers, 3 Relic of Progenitus, and that Singleton Negate that did such a great job last game. The opponent is going to be on the play, and this is everything we could hope for in an opening hand. And the opponent has mulliganed. Let's check what they do with that mulligan. They kept, and what did they do with their card, their scry? They put it on top. So discussing this opening hand a little bit more, we've got removal for a threat that they play. We've got mana disruption on their mulligan. If they kept sort of a hand without all of their colors, we can set them further back with Spreading Seas. Relic Progenitus to weaken cards like Scavenging Ooze, Grimflayer, Tarmogoyf, Lingering Souls. And then, of course, Harbinger, more creature interaction on top of Dismember, another body that can provide devotion for Master of Waves. This is really picture-perfect opening hand. Spreading Seas, if we get to play it, will draw us an extra card. But the opponent is going to have his choice here. We see he's on 13 minutes and 11 seconds. He took quite a while looking at my hand. And yeah, you could see he took about 40 seconds there thinking about it. In the end, he took Dismember, which means he's going to have a threat. We drew another threat of our own with Reejerey, but we can go ahead and get this relic out now and start chipping away at the opponent's graveyard. Okay, so we see that Grimflayer again. We can play the Cavern here. We want to establish a bunch of blue mana, so we can cast all of our stuff. We're not going to attack with Mutavault anytime super soon. But since the opponent is on a mulligan, I'm going to go ahead and hit this Blooming Marsh. I really want to draw this card off of Spreading Seas to sort of put a little bit more pressure from a card advantage point of view. This Spreading Seas is going to put me on 5 cards, whereas the opponent is only on 3. We now currently have 2 Haymakers with Master of Waves, and if the opponent attacks with this Grimflayer, which he almost certainly will, and puts anything in the graveyard, we can trim it with Relic, and we can bounce that guy with Harbinger of the Tides, setting us up for a potential turn 4 Master of Waves with a lot of devotion. All right, going straight to attacks with Grimflayer. What's he going to do with his trigger? All right, looks like he chose to put nothing in the graveyard. Interesting. Follows up with a tap land. That's pretty slow, and yeah, just passes the turn. That 4th land is perfect. It's a body that can get buffed by Master of Waves and also help us cast Master of Waves. So as I mentioned, we're going to bounce this Grimflayer, and the Mutavault will let us keep up mana to crack Relic if the opponent tries to like Abrupt Decay it or something. Everything running super smoothly right now. The opponent plays that Overgrown Tomb, which he needs to if he wants to play any green spells at this point. Here's our friend Grimflayer again. We are not going to sack the Relic. We drew another one. Actually just going to choose to play out Reejerey here and leave up mana for Relic still. No need to play out another Relic yet. If the opponent decides that he wants to try to destroy this one, we're going to be able to at least draw a card on it. I can swing with Harbinger now. If the opponent has a path for Reejerey, I'm happy enough to trade for one of the opponent's few threats. He does have a man land, but we have 3 more Spreading Seas in the deck, and we've got these 2 Master of Waves that are coming, and they're going to get some value at least off of this Spreading Seas. Opponent doesn't like blocks, I don't think, so he goes down to 15. And we've got mana up for Relic here, so the opponent's going to get in with Grimflayer again. We'll see what he does with his trigger. Chooses to put 2 creatures in there. That's interesting. Now, I put a stop on my damage on the damage step against this opponent. If you don't put that stop, what happens, I think, is after his trigger finishes resolving, it goes straight to his second main phase where he gets priority again. So if he had put a, if the only card he had put in was, or if one of the cards he put in was Lingering Souls, I could crack the relic before he goes to his second main phase, as long as I put a stop on his damage step. As it went, he did not put any Lingering Souls in there. But I will trim it anyway before he goes to his main. And the opponent just passes. At this point, having another relic in hand, I'm just going to cycle the first relic, and we draw a third Master of Waves. So let's see what we've exiled so far. There's a couple of creatures and an Inquisition. So at this point, let's run a Master of Waves out. Reejerey is going to get a trigger. So I can just tap his Shambling Vents. If he, the opponent actually doesn't have white mana to activate this thing, so it was a little bit silly because, well, no, it's not really that silly. My thought was that was potentially a blocker, but also, no, it's not really necessary. I could have untapped something else and probably should have untapped one of my lands. My thought, he can just float white mana if he has a path, and then when Master resolves, he can just path him then. But he doesn't have anything, so he just lets me tap it. Doing that, if I play this relic, I don't have mana up to crack it. So yeah, that was a silly Reejerey trigger, but I'm getting really, really far ahead in this match. In this game, I should say. Swinging for 5 here, the opponent's going to go down to 10, and it's actually pretty funny here. I feel like sort of the powerful mid-range deck, where I'm turning the corner by slamming my big 4-drop, forcing the opponent to have some kind of answer, but instead he just has a bunch of 1 and 2 drops. So the sort of tables have turned against this Abzan deck in this particular game. Let's get this relic on the table and see if the opponent has any answer to what I've got here. He's going to attack him with the Grim Flayer. I've got no interest in letting him deal any damage to me, so I'm going to throw 2 elementals in front of this guy. Yep, so trade 2 elementals for a Grim Flayer, and the opponent doesn't seem to have anything going on. He taps 4 mana. Oh, well, that's something. Damnation. However, I have 3 Mutavaults on the table and 2 Master of Waves to follow up with, so even though that's a pretty amazing draw for the opponent, let's see what is. Okay, so a Scavenging Ooze to eat up all those creatures that he just killed. Actually, that was a great turn for the opponent. I draw land, not the best, but I get to play a Master of Waves and continue applying pressure if I want to activate this Mutavault here. Swing for 3, and the opponent's actually right back in this. They don't have a ton of green mana to start eating my creatures. Looks like that's what they're going to start by doing. They're targeting the Harbinger, so I can target myself with Relic, try to get rid of that Harbinger. In response, I guess they really want to gain life. They targeted a different creature. That resolved, and then I get to get rid of the Harbinger so that he doesn't make Scavenging Ooze into a 4/4. Not even that big of a deal if he did get to make the Scavenging Ooze into a 4/4, but I do have the Relic to take advantage of. Opponent cannot attack with Scavenging Ooze, and he's pretty close to dead on board. To activate the 3 Mutavaults are going to be 3/3s. The swing with everything. Maybe block one of the 3/3s and then take like 12. However, if he has like a path for Master of Waves, then he would only be taking 6. So he could eat one of the Mutavaults. We're getting really close. Not quite there yet, but that Island Walk Lord does help a little bit. I'm gonna play that Island Walk Lord first. Then go ahead and just activate a couple of Mutavaults. Now, if the opponent, he has 2 cards in hand, he needs 2 removal spells to really effectively deal with my board. So the thought was, maybe he has 1 removal spell. If it's Path, then he deals with the Master, and these elementals just go away. And the Lord of Atlantis sticks around, and these guys get to swing for 6. And then follow up the next turn swinging for even more. So putting as much pressure as we can. Of course, we still have a follow-up Master of Waves. Even if the opponent wipes the board again, we have Spreading Seas for Devotion, and we have these Mutavaults who will get buffed by our next Master of Waves. So just swing with these guys. Opponent's going to jump in front of an Elemental, but it looks like they have no more outs. So that's it. Opponent goes to -2, and we won the 5th round. So I lost a game in each of the last 2 matches, but those were the only 2 games I dropped across 5 matches in this friendly league. So I'm really enjoying being back on Mono Blue Merfolk. As we saw in a couple of the rounds, Master of Waves pretty much closed out the games. Relic did a ton of work in a bunch of different matches. What do I have in my exile over here? Dismember came in handy. We had 2 relics. Harbinger has been great. Yeah, we had a negate in one of the previous games in this match where we were able to counter Liliana of the Last Hope. So yeah, I don't know. The deck feels great. Let me know your thoughts on the match, and I guess on Mono Blue versus Blue Green. I have a really strong preference for Mono Blue right now after having played Blue Green for a few months. Leave any questions that you might have. Check out the link to my Patreon page. Please subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you guys next time. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye.